If you'd asked anyone in the neighborhood, heck, even her book club, they'd have said Natalie and I had the kind of marriage that made you believe in Sunday mornings and matching bathrobes. You know, the kind of couple that finishes each other's sentences and sends Christmas cards with color-coordinated outfits and overachieving kids posed in front of pumpkin patches. Truth is, I thought we had that marriage too. I wasn't blind, just content. Too content, apparently. I kissed her every morning before work. She packed my lunch with those little notes like we were in high school. Proud of you. You're my rock. Let's run away together. I mean, how do you question a woman who tells you she wants to run away with you while handing you leftover lasagna? We had a 9-year-old son named Oliver. A sharp little dude. Smart like her, stubborn like me. The kind of kid who would argue the rules of Monopoly while building a Lego Death Star in record time. Life wasn't perfect, no. But it was clean, predictable, cozy. Until it wasn't. The weird thing about betrayal is how quiet it is at first. It's not some loud bang, it's a whisper, an itch. And in my case, it came from a tablet. A green-covered, slightly cracked, kid-proofed Samsung tablet with a screen protector full of greasy fingerprints and Fortnite battle stats. It was Oliver's tablet, and that, right there, was her first mistake. I didn't find the message. My son did. But that's a story for later. Before the tablet. Before the "does your husband suspect anything" message. Before the courtroom stare-down where I played my final card like a silent executioner, I was just a husband. A little tired, a little older, but stupidly in love. And like all stupidly in love husbands, I ignored the signs. It all started unraveling the day she started jogging. Yeah, jogging. She bought neon running shoes. Lime green. Said she was taking her health seriously and needed headspace. What I didn't realize then was that jogging would become the most ironic word in our marriage, because it's exactly what she was doing for me, from the truth, from her conscience. Jogging. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. For an hour. 2 sometimes. Funny how fitness can become foreplay. But I didn't know that yet. I was just proud of her. Even bought her a smartwatch to track her progress. She kissed me and said I was thoughtful. Turns out, I was just funding the logistics of her affair. 3 weeks into her newfound commitment to fitness, Natalie came home one Sunday morning glowing. Not glowing like she'd been jogging, glowing like she'd just gotten promoted at a job she didn't apply for. Hair tousled, cheeks flushed, like she'd done more than just clock a few miles around the neighborhood. I noticed. Of course, I noticed. But here's the thing. When you trust someone, your brain does this cute little thing where it gaslights itself. It fills in blanks, edits the timeline. Turns suspicions into support. Good run. I asked. Best one yet, she said, still catching her breath. I smiled and kissed her forehead, thinking, you're amazing. She smiled back, thinking, well, who knows what she was thinking. I imagine it wasn't you're amazing, but more like you're clueless. But I didn't see that yet. It was around that time I noticed she started putting a passcode on her phone. Said she was trying to limit screen time. Oliver asked for a code on his tablet too, like Mom. Said it made him feel more grown up. Fine. Normal, even. I wasn't raised paranoid. I didn't believe in checking phones. To me, that felt like hiring security guards at a lemonade stand. If you have to surveil someone you love, haven't you already lost? So I let it slide. I let a lot slide. The gym clothes became more fashionable. The jogs stretched longer. Her text shorter. Our conversations more functional. What time's Oliver's soccer game? Did you pay the electric bill? You left the dishwasher open again. We were becoming 2 people running the same business, not living the same life. But she still smiled when she said goodbye. Still kissed me on the cheek before heading out. And every night, she tucked Oliver in with that same lullaby voice she used since he was a toddler. She still packed me lunch. The notes disappeared, though. I should have seen it coming then, when the sticky notes stopped. But I didn't. The next few weeks were a slow boil. The kind where the frog doesn't realize it's being cooked. I was the frog. And Natalie? She was already learning to swim in someone else's pot. I didn't see ghosts. But I smelled something burning. If I had to name the exact moment my world stopped being boring and started being real, it was 6:12 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was making dinner, nothing fancy. Just heating up leftovers because Natalie said she'd be late getting back from her run. Oliver was on the couch, half buried in a blanket fort, tapping away at his tablet like he was defusing a bomb in a video game. And then it happened. Dad? His voice had a tone to it. Not fear exactly, more like confusion with a thread of curiosity wrapped in something he didn't have a word for yet. Yeah, but he was staring at the screen like it had betrayed him. This just popped up, he said, and handed me the tablet. Now, let me paint the picture for you. It wasn't some smoking gun photo. No steamy image or cryptic file. Just a clean, innocent-looking text notification that popped up at the top of the screen. Except it wasn't innocent at all. I had a good time yesterday, face blowing kiss. Does your husband suspect anything? I froze. I didn't react. I didn't throw the tablet. Didn't drop it. Didn't scream. Didn't even blink, I think. I read it again. And then once more. Oliver was watching me. Is it a wrong number? Wrong number. I almost laughed. Yeah, I said. Probably is. He shrugged and went back to building pixelated castles or blowing up zombies, whatever 9-year-olds do to stay sane. Meanwhile, I was just standing there, holding a grenade with the pin out. My hands didn't shake. My legs didn't buckle. My chest didn't tighten. None of the stuff you think would happen when your heart breaks. You know what I felt? Clarity. All the half-formed thoughts, the weird looks, the changes in routine, the mystery runs, it all snapped into place like a jigsaw puzzle that suddenly made a picture. I didn't say a word to her that night. I didn't confront her. Didn't pace the hallway rehearsing what to say. I just ate my reheated lasagna, helped Oliver with his math homework, and kissed her on the forehead when she came home like always. I went to bed with a traitor beside me and slept like a monk. See, there's power in knowing something the other person doesn't know you know. And I was about to turn that power into precision. I've always believed that the most dangerous man in the room is the one who isn't shouting. That Wednesday night, when I saw that message pop up on Oliver's tablet, I had a good time yesterday, face blowing kiss. Does your husband suspect anything? I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe different. I just sat with it. And in that silence, something ancient clicked into place inside me. Not vengeance. Not sadness. Strategy. See, Natalie thought she was playing chess. What she didn't realize is I just flipped the board and memorized every piece. That night, she came home smiling. Not the big toothy smile she used to give me when we were still real, but the rehearsed smile. The kind of smile politicians give at town halls. Polished. Hollow. Hey, she said, slipping her shoes off and tossing her gym bag by the door. Dinner smells amazing. You're late, I said, folding the laundry like I hadn't just mentally filed for divorce. I ran an extra couple miles, she replied, like that would explain the light perfume I caught in the air. Jasmine, not sweat. I nodded and handed her a plate. Lasagna. She smiled and leaned in to kiss my cheek. You're too good to me. I was. And that was the problem. Over dinner, I listened to her talk about how she ran past the lake trail and bumped into her old college friend. You know, one of those spontaneous, harmless meetings that just happened to smell like aftershave and deception. She used the name Melissa twice, which I thought was cute, considering I hadn't heard that name before in any of her previous stories. Oliver was too busy dunking garlic bread into ketchup to notice the tap dance happening at the table. After dinner, she kissed me again, this time on the lips, and said, "You okay? You seem quiet." I smiled. "I'm good. Just tired. Long day." She looked at me for a second too long. I could see her scanning me, trying to sniff out suspicion. But I gave her nothing. Like I said, chess. I wasn't trying to win a move. I was planning the checkmate. The next day, I started collecting. Not evidence, Peresi. I wasn't about to become some Hollywood PI with a trench coat and a zoom lens. But I watched. And I took notes. Thursday, she said she had to stay late at work. She left in yoga pants. Friday, she texted me a picture of her work lunch from a place I know she hates. Saturday, she spent 3 hours shopping and came home with one bag and wet hair. All the while, I smiled. I cooked. I helped Oliver with a diorama about the water cycle. I asked her how her jogs were going. And she kept lying. Badly. That's what got me more than anything. The disrespect wasn't just in the cheating, it was in the laziness. She didn't even have the decency to craft believable lies. She thought I was that gullible. She thought I was just some good-hearted golden retriever of a husband who would roll over if you threw him a bone. But she forgot, retrievers have teeth too. The following Monday, I called in sick. While Natalie was at work, or wherever it was she went, I did a little housekeeping. I logged into the family Google account. You know, the one linked to all our devices, including Oliver's tablet. Turns out, Natalie wasn't tech-savvy enough to separate her messages from our synced devices. Every photo, every message, every saved contact, all of it lived on that cloud like a museum of betrayal. It was all there. Text threads with a contact saved as Ava that said things like, "Wish I could wake up next to you again," and "He's so clueless it hurts," grinning face with sweat. Pictures of hotel receipts. A photo of her legs on a hotel bed, captioned, "Waiting for you, face-blowing kiss." I didn't look through everything. I didn't need to. A man knows when the truth has overstayed its welcome. I saved a few things. Not for blackmail. Not even for the court. Just for me. To remind myself later that this wasn't a misunderstanding or a rough patch. This was war waged with a smile and yoga pants. That night, she came home early. Brought Chinese takeout and kissed me on the neck. "I feel bad we haven't had real time together lately," she said. I looked up from my laptop and smiled like I hadn't just read through 63 pages of her emotional infidelity. "Yeah," I said, "me too." She cuddled next to me on the couch, scrolled through Instagram, and occasionally leaned her head on my shoulder like we were still in love. I felt nothing, except a strange calm, because I knew what she didn't know. I knew what I was going to do. People think revenge is a sprint. It's not. It's a marathon. A cold, methodical, silent race to the finish line where you don't gloat, don't boast, don't even blink, just let the other person realize you passed them ages ago, and they never saw it coming. Natalie had taken something from me that can't be returned. Not just trust or intimacy, but belief. And when a man loses belief, he either breaks or he builds something new in its place. And I started building. They say justice is blind, but I think she just learned to keep her eyes closed to avoid the mess. I didn't need fireworks. I needed focus. And so, 3 days after seeing the message on Oliver's tablet, I took my lunch break at a law office 2 towns over, one with no connection to our circle, our lives, or her clever little lies. "Mr. Paxton," the attorney said as she closed the door behind us. "What can I help you with today?" "I want a divorce," I said. "But I want it clean, and I want it quiet. At least for now." Her eyes narrowed with professional curiosity. "Infidelity? Let's say my wife's extracurriculars are better documented than her tax returns." She nodded. "You have evidence?" I pulled out a folder. Texts. Hotel receipts. That photo of her legs, one sock still on, from the Marriott. Funny how people trust clouds to keep secrets. The lawyer thumbed through it with a clinical eye. "You've done your homework." I nodded. "Now I want to do this right. She's not going to see it coming. I don't want a war. I want her to walk into court thinking it's a birthday party and find out it's a sentencing." The lawyer didn't smile. She just nodded again, a look I recognized as professional approval. The same look a contractor gives when you hand them an actual blueprint instead of a cocktail napkin sketch. "Kids?" she asked. "One. 9 years old. Sweetest kid alive. He's not going to see any of this until he's old enough to understand it without picking sides." "Good," she said. "Custody will go easier if we keep this from turning theatrical." "You planning to fight for primary?" I hesitated. That one hurt. "I'm planning to make sure he's with the parent who wasn't sneaking into hotel rooms and gaslighting the family." I walked out of that office feeling taller than I had in weeks. Maybe months. The betrayal still sat like a stone in my chest, but now I had purpose. And purpose is one hell of a painkiller. That night, she asked if I wanted to go out Saturday. "Date night?" she said, biting her lip like we were still pretending. "Sure," I said. "Let's go somewhere nice. Dress up a little." She lit up. "Really?" "Yeah," I said. "Let's make it special." What she didn't know was that I'd already booked the court appointment. Papers were filed. The process server was on standby. And I had reserved a private meeting with a judge I knew handled family court with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a librarian. The funny thing about betrayal is that it only works if the other person keeps playing dumb. And I just stopped playing. The next day, Oliver asked if he could download a new game on his tablet. I said sure, handed it back to him, and almost forgot what that little piece of plastic had already done for me. But before he wandered off, he looked up at me and said, "Dad, was that message really a wrong number?" I froze. I knelt down and looked him in the eyes. "You know how sometimes people do things they're not proud of?" He nodded slowly, sensing the weight in my voice. "Well," I said, "sometimes they try to hide it. And sometimes we find out by accident." He nodded again. "So, it wasn't a wrong number." "No," I said softly. "It wasn't." "Are you mad at Mom?" I took a long breath. "I'm disappointed, but I'm not mad, because I have you, and nothing will ever make me stop being your dad." He smiled and gave me a hug, and I nearly lost it right there. But I held it together, because you don't cry when you're in the driver's seat. You wait till after the crash, and then maybe you dust yourself off. Saturday came like a snake in the grass, silent, smooth, and laced with venom. She wore a dress I'd complimented before. Hair curled. Lipstick like a promise she had no intention of keeping. She even dabbed my cologne behind her ears, the one I wore on our anniversary last year. "You look amazing," I said, buttoning my shirt. She smiled like a thief getting away with it. Dinner was at a restaurant with low lights and high ceilings. She ordered a bottle of wine. A celebration, she called it. I smiled. "Of what?" "Us," she said, raising her glass. "Feels like we're getting back to normal." I clinked mine against hers. To normal. What she didn't know was that, the entire dinner, her phone buzzed in her purse. 3 missed calls from an unknown number, 1 voicemail, and a very official text. "You've been served." See, I'd arranged the delivery for 7:45 p.m., midway through the main course, just as she was cutting into her filet mignon. She didn't check her phone until we were in the car. She went pale, stopped talking, pulled the phone up like it had betrayed her. I drove in silence. "Is this a joke?" she finally asked. "Nope." She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "You planned this," she whispered. "Every second." She blinked. "How long have you known?" I turned to her, calm as ice. "Since the day our son read your affair off a screen that was supposed to help him with his homework." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I kept driving. I didn't need an apology. I just needed the silence that followed it. There's something elegant about silence. It unnerves the guilty. In court, it's the loudest thing you can do. She walked into that courtroom like it was a misunderstanding we were there to patch up. She wore a modest blouse, pearls, and that look, half confused, half hopeful. She thought I'd forgive her. Thought the whole legal process was just a bump in our perfect little marriage narrative. Then she saw my lawyer. And she knew. You can always tell when someone realizes the tide has turned. Her face didn't crumble. It recalculated. That's what cheaters do. They negotiate after the damage. The judge glanced at the file, then looked at her. "Mrs. Paxton, I trust you've reviewed the documentation your husband submitted?" She nodded. "Barely. He has opted for full custody. The court has reviewed the evidence." Natalie's lawyer objected, tried to stall. Something about preserving the family unit, emotional distress, blah, blah, blah. But I'd brought receipts. Metaphorically and literally. Texts, photos, GPS logs from the synced Google account, financial statements showing hotel charges, call logs. The whole tragic novella she thought was happening in the dark. "Was this surveillance legal?" her lawyer asked. "Your client's phone was syncing with a shared family account." My lawyer said, not missing a beat. "It's not my client's fault she couldn't operate a privacy setting." The judge grunted. That was the closest thing we'd get to a laugh. Then came the clincher. I pulled a copy of Oliver's tablet from my folder. Not the device. Just a photo of the message. Framed. Her face went white. "This," I said, "is how I found out. Through my son. Through a message she never meant to send. Through the same device we bought him for virtual learning during COVID." The judge raised his eyebrows. Then turned to her. "Mrs. Paxton, do you have anything to say?" She opened her mouth. But nothing noble came out. Just the usual excuses. "It was a mistake. I never meant to hurt anyone. It just happened. It just happened." Like she slipped on loyalty and landed in someone else's bed. Divorce changes people. Not just the people involved, but everyone orbiting them. Friends started dropping like flies. The ones who used to gush over our Christmas cards suddenly stopped inviting us to brunch. Mutual acquaintances did that awkward thing where they try to stay neutral, which really just means they stayed quiet while she spiraled. Natalie moved into a 1-bedroom condo. She asked for shared custody. The judge gave her weekends. Supervised at first. She tried to cry in court. But by then, the well was dry. Oliver didn't cry. He asked me, "Can I still see her?" I said, "Of course. She's still your mom." Because I'm not the villain in this story. I'm just the narrator. And narrators don't edit for comfort. She tried to apologize over coffee one morning. Showed up at my office like it was a rom-com. "I miss you," she said. "We could have worked through it." I took a sip of my coffee and smiled. "Work through what?" I said. "Your scheduling problem? Your inability to use incognito mode?" Her jaw clenched. The smile dropped. She wasn't used to this version of me. The version that wasn't waiting at the door with flowers and a microwavable lasagna. "You've changed," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "I grew up. Now I could have left it there. I won the house. The kid. My dignity. The court even allowed me to keep the car she loved so much, the one she used to jog to her little meetups. But I'm not petty. I'm strategic. So I let the final blow come from the only place she wasn't watching, the community. Turns out, the guy she'd been seeing, he had a wife and 3 kids. Church-going, potluck hosting, PDA president of everything kind of wife. Yes, who sent her the synced Google evidence in an anonymous envelope? Yes, who also forwarded it to their church elders? Not me. Could have been anyone. The fallout? Biblical. The guy got tossed out, both at home and at his job. Natalie's name got tied to the scandal. It went through their social circle like a forest fire. And me? I just kept walking. Clean. Quiet. See, revenge isn't about shouting. It's about making sure the person who hurt you hears your silence in every room they walk into. 6 months later, Oliver started sleeping through the night again. He laughed more, ate better, asked fewer questions about why mom doesn't live here anymore. I took him camping, built the kind of life where he'd grow up knowing the truth, but not the bitterness. I started running too. Not jogging, running. Different direction. Different reason. Sometimes, I'd see Natalie at school events. We'd nod. Civil. Empty. She started dating again. Some guy in finance, I think. You can always tell when someone's trying to replace guilt with a new hobby. Me? I didn't date for a while. Didn't need to. I liked the quiet. The peace of a house not full of secrets. Eventually, I met someone. Not a whirlwind. A slow burn. The kind where honesty wasn't an accessory, it was the foundation. The kind where I didn't have to guess if the smile was real. You're probably wondering if I ever got revenge. The cruel kind. The dramatic kind. The throw her stuff on the lawn kind. Nah, my revenge wasn't a moment. It was the life I built after her. It was walking into that courtroom and watching her face as she realized the man she thought was weak had been playing chess while she was cheating at checkers. It was letting her lie to me with confidence, knowing I already had the truth laminated. It was making sure the last words I ever said to her as her husband were, "You really should have changed the sync settings." Echoes on the tablet. Sometimes justice doesn't yell. It just lets the silence do the talking.